Welcome to this special Black History Month edition of Las Películas Sábados Gigantes at the Cinemarijuana Theatre. Woo! The latest in our series of special podcasts about films that we've selected to watch to celebrate Black History Month. And this time we're here to talk about the second film from Melvin Van Peebles from 1971, Sweetback's Baadasssss song. So before we get into it, let's just introduce ourselves clockwise, starting with me. I'm Ed.
I'm John.
And I'm Raul.
Smaller group tonight, but
it's a more intimate affair.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's more real.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. More raw.
It's a raw.
For sure.
Raw force.
Okay, raw force. So this movie, Sweetback's Baadasssss song from 1971.
There's a lot of S's in there.
There is a very interesting way to spell it. Stylization.
Badass.
How many S's?
I think
It
five.
looks, 5 officially.
In the S and 2 A's in bad.
That's right.
Ooh.
This film was written, produced, directed, edited, scored, financed, executive produced,
Starred.
and starring Melvin Van Peebles.
That's right.
And
Makes Ed Wood look like a chump.
a handful of other.
And Eddie Murphy looked chumpier.
Did Eddie Murphy do all of that on any of his films?
Nobody did play like 12 roles in the sequel to The Nutty Professor.
He did.
A cinema classic.
Yes.
I believe that was a 1999.
Yeah.
If I'm correct.
We won't be visiting that one for Black History Month.
No. Unfortunately, we'll have to save that one for next year, for the encore next year. This was a controversial film for a number of reasons. I almost sort of don't even know where to begin with this movie. You want to give it a synopsis and talk? We could talk a little bit about the sort of its legacy.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a really different movie. I mean, to just give you a structure of the story, I mean, it's the movie the man doesn't want you to see. A boy born in the streets, forged into a man in the brothels, grows up to be Sweetback, who an ordinary day, working, turning some tricks, turns into a trip down the rabbit hole when a couple of cops overstep their bounds, and he needs to defend his fellow man.
Yeah.
And then he's on the run for basically the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Well, you see just some of the fucked up things the cops do while they're trying to track him down.
Yeah.
And and his feats do their thing.
And he's a man of little words.
He is.
He's maybe 5 lines.
Definitely the strong silent type.
Overestimating it, I'm sure.
Like 100. I mean, he's got the 50-yard stare for sure.
I think it's safe to say he doesn't bring it. He doesn't sing it. He brings it.
Oh, he just brings it. No singing it for him.
The hot
Yeah,
fire,
no.
he brings it.
Oh,
He
brings
does.
it.
Even though he does sing on the soundtrack.
Yeah, and he's packing, by the way, ladies.
Yes.
The man
Max
is packing.
Schwanz.
Seriously.
Yes, if you like swinging Donecker, man, he's got it.
We're all very impressed, Melvin Van Peebles.
He's got it. So let's. This film has an interesting history and legacy. It's sort of noteworthy for begetting blaxploitation as a genre because it made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And Hollywood saw that, even though Hollywood wanted nothing to do with this movie. They saw the money that it made, and they liked that.
And that was all they really cared about from this movie.
But I think critically it would be argued that the majority of films of the blaxploitation era, at least at the time, on a critical level, were certainly, not great.
Well, yeah, no, because I mean, you've got an actual black filmmaker making like
So they reinforce stereotypes,
right,
and kind of stuff.
Well, because that's the thing. So the studios see this movie, and all they take away from it is like black movie equals money. So then they go out and just make, whatever they want as far as these movies that just play up on all these different stereotypes, and they did make money. But that wasn't. I mean, I don't think that's what Melvin Van Peebles was trying to do.
No, certainly not. I think he was trying to wake people up.
Right.
I think he was trying to sort of encapsulate kind of maybe the experience.
It's so kind of Hollywood to miss the point in such a way.
And want to turn it into a commodity.
Right. To just be
formulaic
like,
commodity.
Like, is there a way we can sell this? Because that's what we want, and that's what they did.
Well, basically what James Gunn, if you read his rant about the Deadpool film on Facebook, because he's like, Hollywood is going to miss the point entirely of why this thing was successful.
Yeah. And they're going to think that R-rated equals money.
Right, and you're going to see 50 fucking Deadpool clones now, and they're all going to tank.
Right, because that's not
because
what
that's not
it wasn't just because
successful.
there were swear words.
So I think, and I say this as someone who hasn't seen Deadpool, but I read the James Gunn piece. So.
Well, having seen it, that's a very apt statement because, and obviously he
relevant.
works in Hollywood, and you see what they do. The studios, it's like that's why you have two studios will come up with two very similar movies within a year of each other because one finds out the other one's working on it. And then they jump in.
That's why we never got that Stanley Kubrick Napoleon film.
Yeah, because somebody else was doing it. And he's like, well, no, I'm not doing it then. Because he at least had the fucking stones to not fucking have that Me Too-ism.
But this film is very controversial because these sort of depictions of the events that take place in this film were not very popular with white audiences who...
Oh, yeah. I'm sure cops hated this movie.
Today, can you imagine the protests today?
Oh, yeah.
Like if this like
They'd
came
be
back and was like a
boycotting
thing, yeah. But a number of things in the film are very controversial, sort of that happened, and this film was really a big fuck you to a lot of people, I think, and to a lot of things, you know. So, anyways, I guess we should just and it's been important. For that reason.
Yeah.
It's sort of a revolutionary film.
Well, and
it's a little artsy for some, but...
It does tread into...
It's revolutionary that way, too.
Well, that very much so. And it does tread into, like I mentioned when we were watching the kind of psychedelia thing that was popular at the time. And, of course, obviously,
right into that.
He'd been doing, like, experimental short films in France. So I'm not surprised at
already.
all that he would get into, like, kind of crazy out there stuff.
And really kind of, like, eschew a lot of those sort of conventions.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into 3 minutes, 3 words, yeah?
Sure.
Who should start?
Start with Raul.
All right, Raul, we'll start with you. Go ahead.
I'm kind of mixed on this one. I enjoyed it, but I thought it was hard to follow. Especially, I think part of it was because of the transfer as well. So it was kind of hard to make out some of the scenes and what was going on, especially with how it was directed and shot. Because it's a little, it looks like Michael J. Fox might have helped on some of the camera work.
Yeah, there's some definite handheld stuff, and not very conventional.
But this film does do things that I love to see in older films. When you get this like slice of life of the city, where you can kind of see L.A. or New York and its grittiness and it's
like a time capsule.
Its realness. Yeah, and I love that.
Some stuff is almost like a documentary.
Yeah, and it when it just feels like you're there, that's definitely something it did strongly, and it did well for me. I liked how it didn't feel like any characters were caricatures of something. Everything kind of felt authentic. And even though I was confused by the plot for the beginning anyway, because it's obvious he's on the run from something, I kind of saw it as this series of these loosely tied vignettes. And it almost, because it kind of felt like he goes to here, and I almost didn't understand why he went to certain places.
Right. It almost becomes a road picture or something, because he's just on the run, and he runs into different people and different situations.
Or even just almost like a series of just shorts that are, like I said, loosely tied together by this rough idea of a plot, and that's totally fine. And on that level, it worked for me, because I thought, again, it was like a time capsule, slice of life situation. It almost felt like some kind of biblical allegory at times, too.
Like he, you mean, is it he was like Job or something?
Something, yeah. I'm not too familiar.
Like,
with
I get it, but like sort of a tortured kind of a
because it almost feels like he goes through stations, like Stations of the Cross.
Okay, sure.
So I kind of saw it in some kind of biblical light as well. Like even the beginning where he goes from boy to man, and then his journey is felt with such hardship, trying to do what's best, and he's seen as a criminal, but also as a hero by his community, and the fact that the community sticks up for him.
Yeah, well, yeah, and he's
notorious.
He's totally both simultaneously.
He does become, at least from the song, it seems like he becomes like a local folk
exactly,
hero.
Yeah. So, and he has his own following of people.
Yeah,
almost Christ-like in a way.
He's almost a martyr.
Yeah, exactly. And he's not too much of a badass.
Yeah,
he doesn't really do anything too crazy besides bang a lot of chicks.
Yeah.
and that was pretty rad.
Bang the shit out
like
of him.
crazy.
He's like a reluctant hero, sort of like when he defended that guy. It was like he
He
just had to because it was just he hit a point where it's like, okay,
That's
well,
all he could stand, and he couldn't stand no more.
Exactly. He had to eat his spinach and step in.
As the kids would say, his dick game on fleek.
Indeed. All right. So is that it, or you want to give us your 3 words?
3 words. Solid old flick.
Okay.
I obviously didn't think of that one too far of it.
All right. My turn. So this is not the first time I've seen this film. I watched it quite a few years back, but this is the first time we've revisited it in quite some time. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it a lot more this time. I remember the first time I saw it, experiencing very much of that sort of feeling, the disjointed nature of the way it's put together, and sort of the kind of difficulty in following it.
It's kind of slow.
Well, that too. However, this time, like having like a viewing or 2 under my belt, and also being in love with the soundtrack, which is also written again by Melvin Van Peebles and performed by Earth, Wind and Fire before they were like a big deal, and it's just rad. That song "Hoppin' John" is fucking. It's just great.
Yeah,
and
the music really drives.
When
the
I
film.
used to deliver at Napa, that's one I would jam that record. I would fucking all the time, zipping around fucking town. So knowing the music so well too, really, because the music is what carries the film along, especially in those where he's like taking off and he's all the montages of him running. But I had a much firmer grasp this time on what was going on and what was happening, all that stuff, and I really sort of appreciated that. I wrote down a couple of notes. I guess we could ask. Okay, these are actually sort of questions I could ask. We could talk about. One thing I didn't write on here that I can't talk about is that bit with the preacher. There was a number of amazing things in this film for me. There's a scene where Sweetback finds himself into this little church, and there's this preacher adorned in kind of some African-looking garb who's giving a sermon, and he winds up going in the back and talking to Sweetback, because everybody knows Sweetback is on the lam, and when he starts talking to him about how that young brother's the one out there laying down the truth, and like what he's doing is just trying to get people. Like the preacher totally is talking straight into the camera.
I like that scene a
lot.
Dude,
it was so rad. Like it was straight breaking the fourth wall. And it's funny. I feel like such a fucking snob bringing up Brecht. And I might be off base bringing up Brecht because but it's like the movie stops being the movie at that point, even though it continues being the movie. And the preacher is talking to Sweetback, but he's talking to fucking you. He's looking in the camera, he's talking to you, and he's preaching to you, even though in the narrative sense, he's talking to Sweetback.
That happened too when he goes to see his boss. When he first runs from the cops, the guy gets out of the shower and keeps calling him baby.
Yeah.
When he's giving his final out the door thing, he's talking right to the camera.
There's also the scene after the preacher scene where he's watching the card game.
Yeah.
And it just feels like you're there. And I think part of it's because his character's so silent.
Yeah.
That you're kind of just experiencing this piece, which is why I said it kind of feels like this series of vignettes.
Yeah, totally.
Just because
totally.
you're just there.
Well,
and that's totally great.
And it's got to be, I'm sure, for people seeing it, especially black folks at the time, and before that, I'm sure that while there aren't many people that have gone through everything Sweetback has gone through, I got to wonder for how many people some component of one of the fucked up things that happened to him really has happened to somebody.
Well, yeah, and even to this day.
Yeah.
I mean, things in society get better as time goes on, but anything that happens to any of the characters in this movie on some level probably still happens to a lot of people in this day and age, even today.
That's really sad. I'll stop. So for the interest of talking about some of the finer points, because I obviously love this film.
Words?
My 3 words: won't bleed me. All right, John, your turn.
Yeah, hey, just as you said, I mean, we've seen this movie a while ago, and it's almost, I mean, if you haven't seen it before, in a lot of ways, for me, it was like life-changing from a cinematic point of view, is that I think this is one of the most important movies.
Rule book out the window.
Well, right, exactly. And to really, I mean, like, other than like a couple of like Spike Lee movies, to really see a movie from like a black man, like a tour like this, who did it all, and who went out there, who bucked the studio system to go out and make the movie he wanted to make and tell it like he wanted to tell it. And
then had success with it,
and
too.
Then, right. And it's so raw and it's so real. And like we mentioned when Raul was talking, I mean, some of the little different sort of almost like vignettes, like that on the streets, like you'd swear it's like a documentary. Like I swear that some of the people are basically playing themselves. Yeah. And like, like when, there's a different point when the cops are asking people and people are like, oh, like, I don't know Sweetback. I don't know who that is. And like, I swear they dressed these guys up as cops and just went around the neighborhood as asking people and filming them.
Yeah.
And because everything seems so real and so natural.
Neo-realism.
Yeah. I mean, it does.
It's like the bicycle thieves.
Yeah, it kind of is actually. Yeah.
Well, at least in its, sort of
in the realness,
the depressingness.
Yeah, that too. Oh, that's another thing too. It's a very bleak movie. I mean, you really really feel it. I mean, he definitely can't win, and in so many ways, no matter, because in the end, if the cops want to screw you over, they can screw you over.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you don't really have a moral leg to stand on. In the end, it does. I almost feel like it does peter out a little bit towards the end, because he's on the run for so long, and then it's like it almost just kind of runs out. And I feel like there should have been, like, not necessarily a showdown.
It ends abruptly.
It does end abruptly, and it just like it's like
you want that climax,
right? And you don't.
Yeah, it's anticlimactic,
right? Yeah. And you don't get it, and it's like and it's like, okay, if he was setting up for Sweetback 2, maybe, but like there's no Sweetback 2.
That's so funny for a character whose trade that he plies to the entire film is fucking, that he would deny you that climax.
Yeah,
it's like he won in the fucking contest between him and the audience.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, to look at it critically, it definitely, I mean, it feels like it could have used some sort of a climax. You don't have to be high to watch this movie, but it helps.
Yeah, light up.
Right. Well, I think that
I think it's in the spirit of the film.
No, it is, because if you're making a movie in the 70s for the kind of people who are going to see a movie like this, there's a good chance they're going to be using drugs recreationally.
Yeah.
And so it's not like you need drugs to enjoy this movie, but it's like I feel like he figured the audiences were going to be high.
And that isn't to take the credit away from Van Peebles.
Not at all. I think it's more, it should show like Rose, like a time capsule type of thing. Like it shows the era that it's from.
Yeah.
So this,
and a side that like Hollywood wasn't going to show you.
Right. And I mean, we're watching a lot of important cultural movies this month, but I really feel like this is the most important and most cultural. This is Black Cinema 101. If you want to go out and you want to learn about Black cinema, and you want to celebrate significant cultural, differences between, just different kinds of people in cinema, I think this is where you got to start.
This is definitely essential viewing, I think, in terms of that. So, yeah, your 3 words?
Well, I was going to say true masterpiece, but masterpiece is 1 word, right?
Yeah.
The truest masterpiece.
There you go. The truest masterpiece.
There you go.
Thank you, Raul. Very true.
Okay. All right, so I did write down a couple of things during the movie that I thought we could use as questions here to talk about in the Bulls Deep segment. Did anybody else notice? Well, I mean, I know you noticed, but one thing I thought was really interesting was in the fucking competition when he's in that situation, that the one of the scene where he's got to like
with the bikers.
Yeah. He put on a costume. Like, he's fucking for his life.
But
but he treated it like it was a performance.
Wasn't that his environment though too? Was to fuck in costume?
Yeah, that's what he does.
But I thought that was really fucking interesting. And I thought that really added a layer of complexity to the character that I kind of really didn't think about before. I was thinking during the scene, because there's like that sex show that's happening at the brothel or whatever
at the beginning,
and there's a mix I thought that was really progressive too. I don't know, maybe such a
It felt very real too.
like you have people that I don't know. America's so puritanical about sex and stuff like that, but you have people from all walks of life that are there, and they want to see this. And the people that are performing this sex show, like it isn't just this like necessarily like depraved thing for some like perverts to come in and like fucking pump off and fucking and bounce. There's an artsiness to what they're doing. There's a performance aspect, and so for these people who are sort of marginalized by nature in society because they're black and then they're sex workers and this kind of stuff, to have a viable creative outlet like in what they're doing, I can imagine is a very redeeming and valuable thing to have, because if you're a performer at heart, to have that it's what keeps you breathing.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure that those kind of performances are still around today. I mean, people are always going to want to use art to explore every facet of humanity.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, sex is a huge part of it, and it's funny to think about like things like that. Like it was kind of like how there was that the porn chic thing in like the 70s and stuff, with Deep Throat and stuff, and like. How
it became like a thing. People were like
Right.
actually going out to see it for a few.
Yeah, and how like even though things have changed,
And the
like,
sex scenes are unsimulated, by the way, in this film, according to Wiki.
What? That wow.
According to Wiki,
That's-
they are unsimulated.
I believe it. But like it's the things from that era helped to break down a lot of the walls that society had up.
Yeah.
And even though there's still a lot of walls in society, I think that a lot of what exists now for us in the modern society is because of things like that, and because of people who were willing to, go against the grain and do something different.
I don't know. I think it just if my hunch is right, I think that's a testament to the quality of Van Peebles' sort of writing and direction of this film. That at that stage in the film, when he's fighting for his life and he's still being exploited as a commodity, and he's running because of these violent offenses, that he takes just like that little bit of detail to like maybe remind us subconsciously that this guy is an artist at heart.
It's exactly like when Pee Wee Herman did Tequila in the biker bar. He got them shoes from that busboy. That was the little touch. That was the top hat and bow tie.
Yeah, there we go.
And it was kind of almost, I thought, sort of like him plying his trade, like singing for his supper.
Yeah,
Like
kinda.
they were helping him out and they were getting him away, so he was
It was like both. It was like he was being exploited, but at the
Right.
same time he was doing what he does.
doing what he does, and like sort of like that's something he's bringing to the table. Like, hey, he's plying his trade. He's showing them his art, and that's helping to. I mean, they were obviously all into it.
Because it's very similar to that scene too.
Yeah. With people watching,
And they're laying down.
And
Right.
the bikers,
It-
I say you let me have it first. Okay, so this I want to ask. I wrote this down because I noticed this kind of weird thing about it. Are the cops we see portrayed positively? And if yes, why? Okay, so let me... Okay, obviously the cops are not portrayed in a positive light in this film. But they also kind of are, right? In a way, okay, so the first cops we see that show up at the brothel, they're there to do something heinous and illegal, and basically just like phone their job in and just get whatever, because like if you see them when you see them all kind of thing, right?
But then they're doing it kind of in a cool way.
They're like, because they're turning their heads because that these guys are running an illegal operation,
Right.
and they're like, look, we don't want to make any fucking trouble. We just got to take somebody down there to fucking, and not that that's right, but the cops are almost shown as like kind of trying to be cool about it, and I don't know if we're supposed to feel that way, and if we are, if it's because maybe he's trying to point out that the problem is institutional, because all of the acts of violence that the cops commit, I think, except for the initial beating, they do at the behest of somebody else. Like,
Well, and it's interesting how, I mean, like, when the cops take Sweetback, right? I mean,
Right.
they're totally like cool with him, I
Right.
mean, they're
They'll
offering a
take the-
cigarette. They're
no
not going to put the
cuffs.
cuffs on you. They make it totally clear we're just going to take you down for the night and talk to you. so that our boss gets off our back, and then
Right.
we'll cut you loose.
But then they savagely, for
Well, and
no
that's
good reason,
right, and
like
it's-
just beat.
And they're still being cool to Sweet. Oh, hey, sorry, Sweetback. Like, my bad. Let me take the cuffs off.
Right.
Why don't you stand over here? We don't get any blood on you. Like, they're still being cool to him, but at the same time, they're mercilessly beating this other black guy.
Yeah.
And of course, and that's why he's got to step in. And then it's funny when he runs into those cops when he's on the run.
Right.
They're being totally nice to him too.
Right.
Until they find out what happened. They're like, hey, they were your friends. They were our friends. Do you know
Right.
anything? Like, and it's weird to have that to show them. And maybe it was, like you said, it's not supposed to be positive. Like, it's almost just supposed to be like some kind of like fake niceness, like if he like them wanting to Uncle Tom him.
Right.
Like they're just being nice to him
Like,
to get him.
come on, Sweetback.
Right,
like, you
right.
know how things are.
Yeah, you know how it is. And so in the end, you're gonna do what we want because you're black and we're white.
So they're really they're instruments of evil then, and their sort of niceness is almost like an intentional ruse. is
Right,
what you're
and
saying.
I think that's why Sweetback too has that level of indignation even when they're being cool with him,
yeah.
because it's like he knows they're jive turkeys, and he knows that this niceness is all bullshit, and
Yeah.
deep down he knows what they're like, and it's like, all right, I got to go with you guys, so I'm gonna go with you guys, but like fuck you guys,
Yeah.
like listen, all right, fine, but fuck you guys.
Another scene I'd like to draw attention to that I think was particularly effective was the scene where they are interrogating that dude for information on Sweetback, and they deafen him.
That was so rough.
It really was. The seeing, not having seen this film in a while, I'm obviously older now than I was then. And I don't recall when I'd seen it in the past it having the same emotional impact that it had watching it this time.
Oh yeah,
For me, yeah.
'Cause that was
back
one of the
then. Back then,
things-
I was like, oh, that's fucked up.
That's
like
one
I
of the
thought it
things
was
that-
fucked up.
that I never forgot about this movie was
But
that scene.
No, I didn't forget it. But what I'm saying is, I don't know. I don't think I'm insensitive, but maybe I think this time it was just the scene was played so realistically, and it just seemed so like deliberately savage, but at the same time like so plausible, but so sort of like, and I don't know, it kind of like said so much like how little these people value this other human life, that they're sort of willing to just be like, oh, guess what? Pff, you're deaf now. Like, fuck you. It's straight torture.
Well, then you
I
see
mean-
him at the end, and you're just like, fuck.
Yeah. I mean, it's heinous. It's I don't know. It's cruel. It's inhumane.
It's like crossing a line. Like it's like even if you expect them to like beat them or incarcerate them, like you don't expect them to you don't expect to blind a guy. You don't expect to like put somebody's eyes out
Yeah,
or something.
that's
and
it.
that's like, yeah, it's like, man, like okay, like
even beating somebody up is bad,
but this is just so much more fucked up.
Yeah.
It's just taking things to just such an extra level of cruelty, especially when like in the end, I mean, okay, like, and I don't know if he told him anything because Sweetback had stopped by his place, so he had seen Sweetback.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he grasped on him about that or not, but he didn't know where Sweetback was.
Yeah.
So there's no way he could have given them the information they wanted
Right.
anyway. So you fucking deafen a man for nothing, basically.
Yeah. It was a pretty powerful scene. You know what I mean? It was certainly, I don't know.
It's a level of cruelty you don't see in too many movies.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even in like in movies that like push the envelope a lot of the time, I think they hold back a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is definitely one of the more severe, brutal things that I've ever seen in the movie.
Well, when I saw that scene, I felt like Hollywood had trained me to expect comeuppance for this type of shit.
Yeah.
But the movie is so glued to reality in the sense that there is none.
Right.
Yeah.
That kind of leaves you the bad taste in your mouth because you expect it's like when you're watching wrestling and the heel's just beating somebody's ass and you're waiting for him to get him back and it's like, but you get no vindication.
Yeah.
No vindication, and that's very real.
Maybe that's the point of the anticlimax, like to deliberately make you go like and leave you hanging and be like, oh wait, he's coming back to fucking dish some shit out, right? But like just like in real life, like we're still waiting for shit to be dished out.
Yeah, we're still waiting for Sweetback to come back and
That's
kick some
it.
ass.
You know what I mean? Also too, we can't forget the important lesson that if you if you endure a serious wound, you can piss in some dirt and just pack it into the wound.
Yeah, I was glad to learn that because that's going to come in handy.
Does not work on water. You can't pee into water to sterilize it.
Damn it.
Oh
You know
man, no, you just got to drink the pee.
Thinking about that ending, though, does that make him more Christ-like? Since we're still waiting on Christ's return to make everyone disappear.
Oh, my God. And I just realized where the piss wound, that was in his side where he got stabbed by the spear by the Romans.
Yeah.
Am I onto something?
I think you're onto something there.
So,
but then
hang on. If the Christ allegory is on the money, I mean, so Christ, died to absolve mankind of their sins.
Well, he disappeared from that area or that world.
But what sins is he absolving people of? Because is that not like saying that like
maybe even though it seems sort of counterintuitive, maybe he would be absolving the white man of his sins.
Maybe it's like, well,
he's taken all the injustice for everybody else.
But they're dishing it out to everybody else in his wake.
Sure, but I don't know.
Didn't they do that to Christ's followers too, though? Didn't they whoop some ass, the Roman legion?
Yeah,
like, yo, where your boy at?
Yeah.
Where Jesus?
Yeah, maybe. So they should have called this Black Jesus, maybe.
Bleezus.
Yeah.
Young Bleezy.
Yeah, there you go.
Sweet Bleezy's badass song.
Nice. Badass hymn. Yeah, all right. Well, anything else you want to talk about this film?
Man, I think
I feel like this is a hell of a contrast to something like Sanders of the River.
How does it compare to Watermelon Man? Or Watermelon Man, as it was known.
It's a trip out to see that he made this after Watermelon Man, because since Watermelon Man's a studio film, it's so polished.
Right.
And it's so, and obviously it's got Melvin Van Peebles' spin on it, but it's very much a studio, the kind that you'd expect to see in the theaters. And whereas this seems like such like an experimental movie, you think he would have made this out of college, and then people would have seen this, and then the studios would have brought him in and been like, we want you to make a studio film, and then he makes Watermelon Man. Like, that's how, in my head, before I knew, I assumed the timeline worked, is that he made Sweetbacks, which was an amazing independent film, and that got him the recognition that he did the studio film. But it was actually the opposite.
Yeah, Watermelon Man is definitely funnier.
I'll say.
And
I hope so.
It definitely the narrative is more straightforward in that the sort of things you kind of felt were like, the issues like sort of following this film. And that's
you don't need to be high to see Watermelon Man, if you get what I'm saying.
You won't be like okay, like double checking with yourself to see if you got it. You know what I mean? So it's very straightforward, but in a lot of ways it's like the same message. In fact, it almost seems to me that really Sweetback could almost be like the sequel to Watermelon Man. Like if Sweetback was actually, Jeff Gerber, just that shit kept going.
Yeah. As he got
like
deeper
maybe if
and
Jeff
deeper.
Gerber at the end of Watermelon Man, after the end of Watermelon Man, continued to suffer like more kind of like, injustices and wound up sort of working in a brothel. I don't know.
No, I get
The
what you're
two
saying.
pictures make perfect sense to me for him to have made 1, 2.
Yeah, because where Jeff ends up at the end, where he is joining the protesters and he's starting to fight against it. Like, yeah, like if he had been a younger man, with a longer ding dong, he could have ended up becoming Sweetback. Yeah. And then if at that point, once he'd gone through that, seeing the injustice that Sweetback saw, you think he would step in. Just like in theory, anybody should,
right,
with a conscience.
Yeah. One last thing before we go here, I have written down. Does this make They Call Me Bruce the Asian Sweetback?
Yes,
I thought so.
Yeah, really, yeah. I mean,
right?
he he deals with the white people. He tries to.
He overcomes their provincial bigotry,
right? And their racist stereotyping of him, and in the end,
to redefine everyone's
Right.
idea of what an Asian can be.
although one big difference is that he wins in the end, and he gets the American dream.
Yeah,
He's
he
a
does.
hero. He's got a hot blonde
the
girlfriend.
film fucking lies.
Yeah, which is
Sweetback
nuts.
gets the American dream too of living in Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah, no shit. He moves his shit to Mexico, just like it's the American corporate dream right there that he lives out. Right? So Johnny Yoon in They Call Me Bruce.
Yeah, check it out.
Okay, all right. Well,
we're gonna talk about that one for Asian History Month.
yeah, as soon as they make that. As soon as we get Asian History
It's
Month.
gonna be smart.
Yeah. That'll do it for this special edition of Las Películas Sábados Gigantes at the Cinemarijuana Theatre for Black History Month. A few more of these coming up. We'll be talking about some other films. So if you like this, keep listening and check some of these movies out, man, if you haven't seen them, because, yeah, they're bitching. Except for Sanders of the River. Don't check them.
Yeah, forget piece of shit. Yes.
Let's see that. All right. So for the Cinemarijuana Theatre, I'm Ed.
I'm sweet John.
And I'm Raul.
Yeah, thanks for listening.